Hello, my name is Chloe. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing to you my July wrap up. So July was a little bit of a mix of a month. We started the month off in America and I didn't really want to read. I came home, didn't really want to read. And then we ended the month on the final book support group readathon where I read 6 books in 7 days. So a real variation this month. I'm going to start off with the stats and I think they show how varied this month was to last month. So I read 19 books over the course of the month, which was 5 books lower than in June. However, I read 6,516 pages, which was only 1% lower than in June. So I read 5 less books, but basically the same number of pages. This meant that I read on average 210 pages a day, which is only 4% lower than last month. And then how these stats have all worked out is that the average length of the books I was reading was 343 pages, which is 25% higher than last month. So overall, about the same amount of reading, but made up of a month where I went incredibly slumpy and then just smashed it all in a readathon. So a lot of do I want to read, do I not want to read, but it's left us out on having a pretty good month. I am very on track to complete my reading goal. I finished off July on 115 books read this year, and my goal for the whole year is 120. So obviously I'm going to hit that, but we'll see how much higher I can get. I don't think I can do the full 200. We'll see. So my ratings this month went as follows. I had 1 book that I didn't rate, 2 1 stars, 2 2 stars, 1 2.5 star, 4 3 stars, 1 3.5 star, 5 4 stars, 1 4.5 star, and 2 5 stars. This meant my average rating was a 3.3, which is higher than last month, which was a 3.2. So we're not quite working up past the 3.5. We did have some real shockers this month, but let's just get on into them. So the first book is the one that I didn't rate, and this isn't because it was disastrously terrible, it's just because I didn't personally love it, but I would love to support the author and say thanks again to the publisher for sending it my way. They've all been incredibly lovely and I just didn't love this book, so I don't want to give it a subpar rating and impact the ratings, but it wasn't my favourite thing of all time, and I'd like to share that with you because I'm an honest reviewer, as much as I can be in every situation. So the book I didn't rate is Heather by Charlotte Wood. This is a classic ghost story. We've got scary dreams, an Edwardian girl, and creepy nuns. It's a very creepy all-around book, but it just wasn't going to be my next favourite thing, unfortunately, so I've decided not to give it a rating, but give all my thanks to the author and the publisher for getting me a physical copy sent my way. Moving swiftly on to a book that has made my worst books ever list. Not even worst books of the year, worst books ever, and that is A Pirate's Love by Joanna Lindsey. I picked this one up in a like vintage antique kind of store in America. It wasn't that old, but it was an older mass market paperback and they just had a little collection. So I grabbed it. I think it cost me $1, and oh my god, this was so bad. I hate this with a passion and I am happy to share that online. So this is a story of a woman who gets kidnapped by a pirate. The pirate informs her that he has certain rights to her body as his captive, and we go full-blown Stockholm Syndrome through the rest of the book. The grape, drop the G, was described in detail. Both characters acknowledge that that's what the situation was. It happened many, many, many times. It was awful. It was absolutely awful. I will not be trying anything else by this author. I will not be promoting this book positively in any way. If it was like she'd been kidnapped, they developed a friendship, and she somehow like came to love her captor in a Stockholm Syndrome-y way, I'd have less of an issue. Both characters acknowledging the grape, drop the G, 1 star. No. Next up, the one I think I might get slaughtered for, Not My Type by Evie Mitchell. I gave this 1 star. I didn't like this book, like at all. Different thing is there is a redeeming factor to this. This book has amazing representation. This is a disability rep in bondage style romance. I have never seen that before, so I definitely think it's a positive. However, we removed that from the situation and this was not a good book in my opinion. I'm really, really sorry. To me, it just felt like the author had given a outline of what she wanted the book to be, handed it to the publishers for their like, what do you think of this? Clearly I don't know how the writing world works, and they just published it before she'd finished it. That's really what it felt like. It's 227 pages long, and we have, like, I won't spoil the ending because I know a lot of people do want to read this. This goes from 0 to 100 and spans a lot of time in those pages, and I just really don't think it was done well. I won't keep slating on it because I don't want that to be all this video is, but yeah, I felt like this needed its next draft. Sorry, but the representation was fantastic. Next up, moving on to 2 stars, and the first 2-star book I have here is Perfectly Candid by J.S. Jasper. I won't slate on this one too much because it is a new release and I don't want to be a downer, but I didn't like this book. It's a princess gardener romance, which lovely, loved that. The actual storyline I felt was a really strong one, and I felt like it had some quite important messaging in it. There was a lot about race and royalty and virtue signaling that I just found really interesting. However, I didn't love the writing in this book. I lost my place quite a lot and didn't quite understand the pacing, the timings of when things were happening. It was also multi-perspective in third-person point of view, which isn't the end of the world, but I did feel like I'd be reading and I wasn't sure whose point of view we were in. Like, if both characters were in the situation, I got so lost so easily. They read like the same person. So yeah, didn't love this. Sorry. My second 2-star read was The Start of Me and You by Emery Lord, and yeah, another one that was not for me. This did feel like a very typical 3-star YA contemporary all the way through, and then it really dropped off at the end for me. I did spoil in my weekly reading vlogs why, but I won't repeat what I didn't like about this. Let's just say the formatting really changed and the method used to tell the story changed in what I thought was quite a important time of the story and would have been my favorite time of the story. So we're following 2 teenagers. The first one had a boyfriend when she was 15 years old, but he had a tragic accident and died. She's now coming to terms with how to like reintroduce herself into teenage drama, and she has a list of things she wants to do to live again. The actual premise is quite moving, but it was 3 stars till it became 2. Next up, the book that I rated 2.5 stars is The Sea Witch by Katie Roberts. Unfortunately, I didn't love this one. I have a very love-hate relationship with the Wicked Villain series. Some of them are 4 and 5 stars, love them so much, really good, spicy romances. Some of them, however, just really give me the ick, and this one gave me the ick. I won't be too harsh on it. We all know that these books going in are just not going to be good in any like literary way. We're not winning prizes here, but unfortunately, I just didn't like the romance. I didn't like a lot of the romantic situations, and I didn't believe in the relationships at all. So 2.5 stars. We then move on from books I thought were actively bad to fine, 3 stars. This book is fine. The first one I have here is Near the Bone by Christina Henry. I didn't hate this by any means. We're following a couple who live out on the, like in the woods. There's a creature lurking. There's something in the woods that wasn't there before, something that makes strange cries in the night, something with sharp teeth and claws. I really did like what the author did with this story. It wasn't just like a monster horror. There was a lot of contemporary feel elements to it, which I really did enjoy, but unfortunately I cared a lot less in the second half of the book. It did lose my attention quite a lot, so I didn't hate it, but I wouldn't read this again, and I don't know if I'd recommend it. Next up, one that I'm sad to put on the list at 3 stars, but you will see another book in the series as I carry on with my reviews. I gave 3 stars to Thinly Veiled by Eliza Modiste. This is book 1 in the Veiled series, and they are suspense romances. So in this book, we're following 2 girls, or young women rather, who move to a new small town, and one of them, Claire, gets a job in the local bar called Henry's. She starts working with a guy called Luke, who it turns out lives in the apartment complex with her. So romance ensues, as we could assume, but it does turn out that Claire has quite a dark past that she might need to admit to Luke because it's coming back to bite her. I really like the concept of this story. I didn't quite enjoy every element of the writing in this one, and I feel awful saying that because the author is just so lovely and I have so much to say about the rest of the series, but this one, it definitely felt like a first book, and I definitely think there's progression going forward, but 3 stars for a first book isn't actually that bad to me. I was intrigued enough to carry on with the rest of the series, and yeah, you will see more of my thoughts in a second. So the next 3-star read I have is Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. I buddy read this one with Emily this month, and unfortunately I didn't absolutely love it. The writing definitely started out more interesting to me. It was very witty, it was kind of funny, and I enjoyed that. So we're following a vampire real estate agent, and she is trying to sell a building, but it is currently being haunted by a ghost of the previous tenant. So the ghost doesn't want the building being sold, so he is disrupting the process in every way. Alongside this, we also meet the godson of death. His name is Fox, and he is convincing the world that he is a medium and can talk to the dead. So their stories intertwine, and there is a game against death, is all I'll say. I didn't really understand what was going on in the second half of this book, and I felt like it was definitely written for the aesthetic, which is why I can't give it more than 3 stars. But some of that wittiness really did make me smile, so 3 stars felt like a good place to sit with my rating. And finally, in the 3-star category, we have I'm a Therapist and My Patient is in Love with a Paedophile by Dr. Harper. This is the second collection of short stories from Dr. Harper, the fictional doctor. And I didn't enjoy this one as much as the first. I do have the third to read, and I want to do that very soon. This one is just a little bit strange. I can't tell you too much about where the story's gone because it does follow on from book 1, and it's like a book told through short stories. If you're into something weird and wacky and odd, then I would give these books a go, but I couldn't fully recommend this one, and if it was a standalone, I would be unhauling, but I'm gonna read book 3 and see what I feel about the series as a whole. Next up, 3.5 stars went to Two Can Keep a Secret by Karen M. McManus. I have now rated the 3 Karen M. McManus books I've read a 3.5 star. They've all got the same rating, and I did enjoy this one. Until I put it down, I was thinking it was a 4-star read and my favourite book of hers that I've read, but I did just, something niggled about it. There was something I wanted to see continue throughout the book that didn't, that was introduced at the start. So we're following a pair of twins. They move back to a town that their mom is from, who was also a twin. The mom's twin was abducted and went missing / was murdered, and it's a big mystery in this town. 5 years before the date of this book, another teenage girl has gone missing, and now that the twins are back in town, it is happening again. Homecoming queens just don't stay in this town, they disappear and come to tragic ends. Our main character Ellery likes a little bit of true crime, and she thinks that she can find out what's going on. So I did really like this one. I listened to it on audio while I was driving to and from my new job, so I had a lot of reading time. But yeah, there was just something in it that didn't carry all the way through. If you've read it, let me know, we'll chat about it. But it just wasn't a new favourite for me. Next up, 4 stars. The first book I gave 4 stars to was Small Spaces by Catherine Arden, and I thought this was absolutely adorable. This is a middle grade horror, and it's like a creepy scarecrow kind of book. I absolutely loved it. I don't normally rate middle grade because I don't feel like I'm a good enough audience to rate it, but this felt kind of creepy enough to be bordering into YA. Like, it was quite scary at times. So if you are interested in being scared but from like a younger perspective, then I would thoroughly recommend this book. I do think it's really good fun, and yeah, I'm so glad I read it. Next up, we have one that I have not much to say about, and that is The Truants by Kate Weinberg. I had been holding on to this for the longest time. I was scared to read it, and when I finally picked it up, I absolutely loved it. So we're following people who've gone away to university, and they're just kind of figuring out who they are and first adult relationships. There is a big Agatha Christie spin on this book, and as someone who has never read any Agatha Christie, I didn't quite understand all those elements, so maybe it would have been a 5-star if I had. But this one was just, I always say Sally Rooney vibes. Not a lot happened, but I felt a lot about it. If you're interested in like a contemporary mystery, I would definitely recommend this one. The next 4-star book I have to tell you about is Powerless by Elsie Silver. This is the 3rd book in the Chestnut Spring series, and unfortunately it was my least favourite so far, but a 4-star rating from me is very, very good. So we're following Jasper, who has been in the friend zone with Sloane for the longest time, since they were little kids. Sloane runs away from her wedding, and Jasper is there to save her. He whisks her away, distances her from her everyday life, and they rekindle a bond that they've had since they were children. It's very, very, very cute. However, friends to lovers is probably my least favourite trope. I'm not a massive friends to lovers person. I don't know why. I think it's just me personally. I'm like, oh, but they're my friend, you know? Like, no. I do quite like to assume that friendships can exist without there being some sort of sexual desire behind it. What do I know? But yeah, so I did really like it. I just don't think a Friends to Lovers is ever going to get 5 stars from me. Also, a lot of their relationship is already pre-founded. We already know that they're like best friends forever, so it's like the author doesn't have to build up that relationship as much, if that makes sense. So yeah, Friends to Lovers, just not my favourite, but it was very good. Next up, one that I did not expect to be this high up on the list is Barbarians Prize by Ruby Dixon. This is book 5 in the Ice Planet Barbarians series, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had a bit of a chat with Becca from the Becca Fowl about this one, who actually gifted me this book too, about why I loved this book so much, and it makes sense to me why I love it. But when you start talking about giant blue aliens healing women of their trauma, you start to sound like a crazy person. So I will leave it there. But I think this is my favourite Ice Planet Barbarians book. I really enjoyed it. We're very used to the blue aliens now and what's special about them, both emotionally and anatomically. It was a good time. What could I say? It was a good time. The final 4-star book I had is Veiled in Brick by Eliza Modiste. So this is the 3rd book in the Veiled series, and I definitely preferred this by a long way over book 1. In this book, we're following Zoe, who is the other young woman who moved to town that I mentioned earlier. And actually, I say this now, I don't want to spoil anything because there is a bit of a mix-up in the relationships, but this is a Friends to Lovers, so maybe it's the same opinion on why I can't give it 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I was reading on my Kindle and I just kept reading. I was in bed with one eye closed because I was so tired, and I was still reading this book. I thought it was really good, and it's a great setup for book number 3, which may or may not be my current read. So yeah, definitely prefer this over book 1. We still get the small town elements. It's still a romance suspense, so some really scary things happen. There is actually quite an emphasis on stalking in this book, so if that's not something that you're into reading, then maybe avoid this one. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it, had a great time. Only 3 books left now, so the 4.5 star rating I had was Final Offer by Lauren Asher. I really liked this book. It probably could have been a 5 star, but in my review I said if you could achieve this same effect with 200 pages less, you could have had a 5 star. But I don't think this book needed to be this long. It is 577 pages of contemporary romance, and I definitely think it could have been achieved in 377 pages. We are following Cal, the 3rd, Kane brother. Couldn't remember their last name. So being in the Dreamland Billionaires, so starting with the fine print, I couldn't remember what that was called. It's the 3 brothers and the things that they have to do to complete their part of the inheritance from their granddad, and yeah, what they need to achieve to get their inheritance, be on the board of Dreamland and just set themselves up for wealth for the rest of their lives. In this story, we also have Alana, who is living in a lake house that was owned by Callahan, or Cal's granddad. So maybe something might be in his inheritance clause about this house. Maybe this is a second chance romance and they have to figure out their differences in order for him to move on with his life. I did really like it. The part that I loved is that Alana has a young daughter. She has a 5-year-old. So Cal comes back into her life and she has a young child. And how do you kind of cope with that with an ex-girlfriend you're maybe rekindling things with, and they now have another person in their life. So I did really like that aspect, but yeah, cut off 200 pages and this is a 5 star. So moving on to the actual 5 stars here. The first one was a reread, so it was kind of expected, but that is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. I cannot fault this book. I would love to be able to, but this is like just a very slightly dystopian world where technology has got to the point that there is a service that will call you on the morning of the day you are going to die. So this happens to our 2 characters, Mateo and Rufus. They both get a call in the morning that they're going to die that day, and they, using an app called Last Friend, they manage to form a relationship. They don't know each other previous to this, but they decide to spend the day together and just achieve things they want to do that day. It is so gut-wrenching, this book. You, even after reading it one time, I knew what was going to happen, but you still find yourself being like, they can't both die at the end. And it's really easy to feel a hell of a lot for. So 5 stars. It is quite depressing. It is very centered on death. death, clearly, but it's just amazing. It's just amazing. I really like this book. Saying that, it is the only Adam Silvera I've loved, so bear that in mind. And last but not least is Twisted Hate by Anna Huang. This is the third book in the Twisted series. It is a haters to lovers romance, and I absolutely lapped it up. We're following Josh, who is a doctor. He's very cocky, he's very arrogant. And then we have Jules, who is this gorgeous woman who has always been a thorn in his side. He's never been able to charm her. And added to this haters to lovers is the fact that Jules is his little sister's best friend. So Josh is her best friend's brother. We know I love a best friend's brother romance. I would not be in my relationship with Cole without it. So it's a best friend's brother. It's a haters to lovers. There is so much passion and fire in this relationship, and I absolutely loved it. Is this a perfect book? No. But we all know I rate on enjoyment, not quality. So I enjoyed this book to the full 5 stars. Big fan. Would recommend. So there we have it. Those are the 19 books I read in July. I'm really happy with that stat, actually. Looking at the books, looking at how much I got off my TBR, and the good books that I'm keeping behind. Yeah, I feel really positive about these books, and I'm incredibly happy that I could get through them. Let me know if you have any opinions on these books down in the comments. I would love to chat to you guys about them. But for now, that's all I really have time for. So thank you very, very much for watching this video. I really do hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.